tonight. For the past few months, we have brought you allegations of wage theft and labor violations from a restaurateur in Niagara Falls. Well, now we're learning that wage theft is actually quite common at businesses all across our area. Investigative Post dug through state and federal records and found over the past decade or so, nearly 2,000 regional employers withheld more than $17 million in pay and benefits from almost 24,000 different workers. So on average, that's around $3,000 per affected employee. Investigators found some victims were owed very small amounts of money. A handful, though, got large sums, up to $40,000. Investigative Post found a total of 2,041 wage theft cases across our 8 counties over this near 10-year period. Now, in 30 of those cases, state or federal investigators found that the businesses failed to pay the workers $100,000 or more collectively. Here are the 3 largest, most notable cases. Back in 2015, both the U.S. and New York State Departments of Labor found that Titan Development in Gasport owed nearly $780,000 in wages to 19 people, about $41,000 per worker. Then here we're looking at United Memorial Medical Center in Batavia, also owing to hundreds of claimants. Finally, Grabber & Sons Landscaping owed $460,000 to 64 different employees. That case dating back to 2019. Now, others involve some of the region's largest and most well-known companies, including New Era Cap, Tim Hortons, and the Anchor Bar. Let's talk this over now with the reporter who broke this story, Shoemaker with Investigative Post. Really fascinating here, because I got to tell you, you've been covering the restaurateur story in Niagara Falls and these wage theft allegations. I had no idea that there was this much of this out there. And these are cases that have been adjudicated, right?
Yeah, so this is one of those things that kind of flies under the radar, right? Because in many, many wage theft cases, you're talking about somebody working overtime hours and not maybe getting that overtime pay. It might be a couple $100 here and there, or tips that aren't distributed to a waitress, or you clock out at 5 p.m. but you stay on and do an extra 25 minutes of work. All of those count as wage theft, and there's only a couple hundred investigators at the state level to dig into all of this. And so you have a lot of these cases, and attorneys who I spoke to said this is certainly an undercount. So you're talking about millions of dollars, thousands of workers, thousands of employers. That's an undercount. I should say that this data originally was the state and the federal government didn't want to release this. The news outlet Documented in New York City, they're the ones who took the government to court to get this data, and they've been kind of maintaining their own website and updating this. That's where we were able to kind of take this, slice off the Western New York portion, and really dig into the numbers.
What is the biggest takeaway for people who are watching right now? Is it that as a worker, you really do need to pay attention to all of this, right? And make sure that you're not being a victim of this wage theft.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, keep track of your hours. Keep track of what your employer says they're going to pay you, what your contract says if you have one, and what you're actually getting paid every week or every month or every 2 weeks on your pay stub. Like I said, these go from really egregious cases where a business owner is purposely withholding money from you, all the way down to little nickel and dime stuff that really adds up. Like I said, maybe you clock out, but then you have to stay on and do a little bit more work. That counts, so just pay attention to the hours you're working and what you're actually getting paid, and are you being compensated for your labor?
Finally, it's interesting that you talk about that there aren't really that many people in charge of investigating this stuff and trying to get money that is owed to workers actually to them. Politically, is there anybody out there saying, hey, we need more investigators, we need to help workers make sure they're getting what they're entitled?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because as of September 2023, wage theft is considered felony larceny in the state of New York. However, are the local DAs prosecuting that? No. I asked the Erie County DA about that. They said they've only received 1 complaint of wage theft so far. They could not prosecute that case because the issue predated when the law changed. In the state budget this year, there are some provisions that are being pushed for to make basically business owners be more accountable. For example, putting liens on their property if they fail to pay their workers back, or even seizing financial assets if they fail to do so, because that's another issue, right? Is these investigators will come and say, hey, we think you owe your workers $100,000 in unpaid wages. Well, sometimes the business owners don't pay. And so the state is looking to increase the penalties on business owners if they don't.
There is a lot to this, as there often is with Dale's reporting. Make sure you go to investigativepost.org. You can see the full article there with a lot of reaction as well. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks.
Appreciate your time.